Continuing on setting goals and figuring out what you want to accomplish, specifically in your careers, our next speaker is someone who's been very well accomplished in the community industry. She's worked with different community platforms. She worked with the FeverBee community consultancy for a while. She's someone that has been in the industry for a while, and I think she's never had to actually interview for a job before because her reputation and the work that she's done always precedes her. She's one of the smartest people I know in this space and someone that I've gotten to know over a few years, although I kept calling her Sarah last night and she told me that's absolutely not allowed. So we're not going to call her Sarah. Nobody call her Sarah. But we are going to welcome, with a big CMX Summit welcome, Hawk!
I got sunshine in my pocket, that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body.
Awesome.
I can't take my eyes off it, man. It's so phenomenally.
They told me to be emotionally prepared for that. Man, I was not. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's a real honor to be here telling my stories. And that's pretty much what I am going to do today. I'm just going to tell you my stories. And some of those will resonate with you. Some of them may not. But I just hope that what I can do is help you to make a plan so that if shit hits the fan, you feel good about your future. But before I do, I got to get something out of the way. Just got to get that out of the way. All right, you're going to see it on every single slide. Every single slide. And I want you to know that I know. All right, so today I am going to talk to you about a career in community. And my career in community, in fact, my whole life, started in this place. This is New Zealand. It is a cool place. Who's been to New Zealand? Oh, that's quite a lot of you. The rest of you, next time you come, hit me up. We'll have a beer. A beer. See how I said that? Beer. All right, New Zealand. So this is a cool place. It's beautiful. It's safe. My kids walk to school by themselves each day. Our healthcare is free. We don't have snakes. Our spiders don't bite. You get the idea. This is a cool place. The only downside about living in this place is that it is at the bottom of the world. It's right at the bottom of the world. And that has meant that I have had to work a bit smarter and a bit harder to compete for the same jobs that all of you guys are competing for. I've had to do it from home, and I've had to do it, I haven't been in front of the big brands. So a little bit harder, a little bit smarter, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. But before I do, let's just have a quick look at the current state of play. Put your hand up if you or someone that you know has lost their job in community unexpectedly in the last few years, whether a company restructure. That's a shitload of you. That's scary. And that's kind of what motivated me to talk to you about this today. Partly that, we define ourselves so much by our jobs, and we spend so much time investing our heart and our soul into the communities of the people that we take care of. And so when that gets taken away unexpectedly, as well as financially distressing, it's quite emotionally distressing. But it's not always about the bad stuff. It's smart to have a career plan. It's smart to have your trajectory plan so that you know what 5 years looks like, you know what 10 years looks like. Let's look at the current landscape. So too few organizations truly prioritize community. And that's fair enough. Because unless you can demonstrate a very clear financial benefit for the work that you do, it's just good business to push your way when shit gets hard. I do a lot of swearing, sorry guys. I should have said that at the start. It makes sense from a business perspective when money gets tight to cut the guy that delivers the least value to the organization. And I'm not saying that we deliver the least value to the organization, hell no. But what I am saying is not that. What I am saying is this. We're not that good, and we're getting so much better, but we're not that good at articulating in the right language that value proposition. We're not that good at talking to the stakeholders and the people that write the checks. We need to get a little bit better at that if we want resilience. This, ambiguity around roles. And this, I think, often comes down to the fact that employers aren't particularly good at writing job descriptions. Partly, so in the UX world we call it a unicorn, and it's the same in the community world. There's people that want a community manager to do all of the things. It's only kind of in more recent times that people have even started to realize that community management is a full-time role. You need a full-time community manager to run a good community. So people don't write good job descriptions. Sometimes we end up doing social media management as well. Sometimes we end up doing event management, lots of little bits of admin work, stuff that wasn't really what we were thinking that we were signing up for. So it means that it is hard to plan your career if you end up in a job that's not a good culture fit for you. This one, I think this is a good thing. Some of you might not agree, but community and social media are getting the separation that I believe they deserve. They're quite different skill sets. They're quite different types of roles. In the past, I've had jobs that have had an aspect of social media management, and it's just not something I'm particularly good at. But what that does mean is that for those of us in pure community roles, we've got to get a little bit better about fighting for our spot at the table. Social media guys tend to sit under the marketing department, and by nature, they're really good at expressing their value. They're really good at marketing themselves. But there's a really big upside to working in this industry, and it's this. It's that our really strong online infrastructure means that networking is reasonably easy, and reputations are really visible. All you got to do is go by your slightly unusual last name. So that's my number one tip. I got some more though. That's not it. That's it. No, okay, so this is how I do it. And it boils down, it's a four-pronged approach, boils down to three main things. Networking, brand management, and planning. Build your network, build your brand, and think ahead. So building a strong network, this is the thing you've got to be doing right now. If you're not doing it now, it's too late. Once your job is in jeopardy or once your job is gone, you can't go, shit, I've got to quickly do some networking. Guys, you've got to do it now. That ship has sailed once your job's in jeopardy. So start now. Let's look at some ways. Yeah, no shit, right? Join communities. But do you really prioritize the time at the end of your long workday in front of your screen? Do you prioritize the time to be really visible and present and a valuable member of the kinds of communities that are going to return on that investment for you? FeverBee, I shortcutted the system a little bit by working for FeverBee. So I got to put my name out there, and you guys, some of you got to know me through that. But was I not working for that community, would I have prioritized time at the end of each day to be visible enough? You need to put that time aside, whether it's CMX, whether it's FeverBee, whether it's a community related to your niche. Spend some time getting active. Attend meetups. So this was a bit tough for me in New Zealand because there aren't any. But for you guys, if there's meetups, half an hour, a couple of beers or a glass of wine, face-to-face contact with somebody is really powerful networking. What you're starting to try to do is build social capital. You're starting to bank some social capital. We'll talk more about that shortly. Attend conferences. So I met my current boss, Jeff, at a conference that was ironically being run by my, at the time, boss, Rich. And Jeff and I sat down and made some tequila cocktails together. And holy shit, there was some good networking that went on. And look how it turned out. Attend conferences. Volunteer, this one's super smart. You teach, you learn, and you network. Building that social capital. That was the last one. Be a mentor. That's those three things. Volunteering. Volunteering is more of an audition. How many people here started a community role that began as a volunteer position? That's heaps. I did too. My very first community job was at a big tech community called SitePoint, and that started out as a volunteer position. I was writing software at the time, and I joined SitePoint to steal other people's code. And that's how we made Discourse. No, so am I being recorded? So it started out as a volunteer job, and I worked my way up through the roles at SitePoint, and it got to a point where people did go, oh, wow, this community thing's actually a job, let's pay someone to do it. And I was the obvious person. I'd been part of the community for 5 years by that time. They trusted me. The organisation knew my work ethic. We were a good culture fit. So they shoulder tapped me, and that's how I got into community. Volunteer. Worst case scenario, it's just really good practice. We already did be a mentor. But mostly, this next one, this is what you've got to do. You've got to be unreservedly and uncompromisingly you. That's me, I've got that one, you guys can have you. But you've got to figure out what being you means. This is a small industry, we all know each other, we all talk. You've got to figure out what your brand looks like, and you've got to work on being that. And then once you've done all this building of social capital, once you've done all your networking, don't be afraid to use your network, lean on your network, ask for help, ask for a job. People aren't going to offer you a job if they don't know that you need one. Don't be afraid. And unfortunately, sometimes when we do find that insecurity around our jobs, we feel personally insecure and we don't really want to talk about it. We don't want to say, hey guys, I'm just about to lose my job, because we feel like it reflects on us as people. And it doesn't. Use your network. All right, second prong in my four-pronged approach. Find your niche. What is it that makes you different from the other 399 people in the room? What is it that I'm going to think about when I hear your name? So for me, that was UX and community platforms. But there's lots of options. When I think of knowledge management, I think of Nancy Kinder. When I think of health communities, I think of Colleen Young. When I think of open source communities, I think of Aile Federini. So what is it that I'm going to think about when I hear your name? What is it that you can start to build your knowledge and your reputation around? And once you figure out what that is, you've got to start talking widely about it. You've got to start talking. It becomes self-perpetuating. The more you talk, the more people ask questions. The more questions you answer, the more public questions you answer, the more your name becomes associated with your topic. And write prolifically. Start a blog if that's your thing. If it's not your thing, find someone else that's got a blog and say, hey, can I write something for you? Share your stuff on LinkedIn. Share yourself on the CMX Slack Stuff I've Written channel. Get your name on the internet associated with your topic. Be a guest on podcasts. This one's super powerful. There aren't that many podcasts in our space. Talk to Patrick O'Keefe about Community Signal. I was a guest on Patrick's podcast. It was a few years ago now. I think it was one of the very first episodes. And he still shares that podcast episode on Twitter. He just did it last week, and I got about another sort of 40 or 50 followers. And that's 40 or 50 people that know who I am and know what I do. Be where your audience are. So that might not be in communities for you guys. It might not be at meetups. It might not be on the internet. You've got to figure out where your audience are and where the questions are being asked that you can answer, and that's where you've got to be. And you don't always have to have all the answers. You don't always have to be the definitive voice of truth. You might not know the answer, but you can say, hey, let's shoot some shit, let's talk about some ideas. You know, people sometimes just want a springboard. And again, that's building that social capital. Pitch to speak at conferences. So I'm all about efficiency in everything. And right now, there are 399 of you in this room, and you all work in the same industry as me. And every single one of you knows my name and what I do. Yeah, that's efficient networking and brand building right there. All right. Third prong, play to your strengths. So figure out, like when I said be you before, figure out what that looks like for you. Figure out how you want to be thought of in our small space where we all talk about each other. But some of the things you need to make sure you do is this. You need to be confident, because you need your next employer to know that they can put you in front of their customers and know that you're not going to screw it up. They need to know that you know what you're talking about. They need to have confidence in you because you're exuding confidence yourself, even if you don't feel it. But be humble. Like, it's really great to go on about how you know all of the stuff about all of the things, but you've still got to be somebody that people want to work with. Be memorable. So you've figured out who you are, you've figured out what you're good at. Now you've got to make sure that people remember. Just going to leave that on for a sec. Be likable. Like I said, you've got to be somebody that people want to work with. You've got to know that if I get a phone call that says, hey, I'm talking to Catherine about a job, what do you think of Catherine? You need to know that I'm going to go, hey, she's cool. She really helped me in my last job. She was great at onboarding. You need to be somebody that people want to work with. And I've found this a lot myself, especially in the current environment where there's lots of talk about women in tech and women fitting into organizations. And we really struggle in our organization to get women. There's 5 of us now. There was 1 of us last year, and that was me. So we're getting there. But it's really difficult to, especially when women walk into an organization that doesn't have other women, it can feel hostile. So you need to do everything that you can to be likable, to be someone that's inclusive, somebody that other people want to work with, especially if you're a woman in tech. Be innovative. Take big risks. It's scary. It's scary to take big risks, but it's smart. It gets you remembered. When I was working at SitePoint, like I talked about before, I did a really massive and really public migration from vBulletin, thank God, to Discourse. I wasn't working at Discourse at the time. Discourse was actually in beta. And it was a really big risk, and people thought I was crazy because I was crazy. But it worked. And what it did was it put my name out on the internet when Rich at FeverBee needed somebody to migrate what was on, FeverBee Experts was on Drupal at the time. When he needed somebody to migrate Drupal onto Discourse, I was the obvious answer. So you've got to take some risks sometimes to get the gains. And this one's really important. Fake it if you have to. Like, people don't see what's in here. People see this, and people hear this. This. I'll just say this. Best slide ever, yeah? This is the best slide ever. Imposter syndrome. It gets every single one of us. It does. It gets every single one of us. Don't let it own you. Oh, I'm running out of time. 4th prong. Think ahead. Plan. Be visible and demonstrate your value. So when things start to get shaky in the organization and people start to get laid off, be the last guy standing. No one is completely, I'm going to do my next slide. No one is completely indispensable, but be visible. Make sure that people know what it is you do and what it is that you're good at and what it is that you're bringing to your organization. Hang out in the right places. So at Discourse, we employ people almost exclusively through our meta community. And we do that because we've already ascertained that those people know Discourse. We've already ascertained that they've got really strong written skills. We've already ascertained that they're a good culture fit and that we get on with them and that we like them and that we trust them. So figure out what your future looks like and put yourself right in its path. Be indispensable. I alluded to this just before. So obviously it goes without saying that, if the ship sinks, everyone goes down, but be the last one. Be the last one to go down. Buy yourself some more time. And this is the most important thing. When you're planning your career, figure out what it is that's important to you. I talked to a few people about this over the last few days, and we often get into situations where there's money over here, but there's all of these other things over here. Figure out what things are important. Is money more important to you than a job title? Is flexible working hours so that you can hang out with your kids more important? I start work at 5 a.m. so that I can finish at 3 p.m. I've never had to put my kids into childcare. That's what's important to me. Figure out what's important to you, but above all, this. Do what you love. Life is way too short and way too precious to spend in a job that isn't working for you. The fear of financial insecurity and the fear of the emotional insecurity, all of those things should pale away if you're not doing what you love. So now we've got 5 minutes, I think. You all will have gotten a worksheet, and all the worksheet really is I've just pulled out a couple of the key points that I've talked about today. And so, just take 5 minutes either by yourselves or with the person beside you, or in small groups, whatever, you're adults. And just have a look and see if you can establish what gaps there might be in your planning. And hey, thanks for listening.